Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise tonight in support of H.R. 5461, a bill authored by Mr. Barr, my colleague on the Financial Services Committee, and co-sponsored by Mr. Miller from California and myself. This bill contains 4 titles, 3 of which have already passed this House with overwhelming or unanimous support, and one of which passed with only a dozen no votes. Mr. Speaker, it's rare that the Senate sends us meaningful legislation, and frankly, it's even rarer when they send us legislation that amends and fixes the Dodd-Frank Act. As we on the Financial Services Committee have seen in our hearings and our markups, our friends on the other side of the aisle and the other side of the Capitol usually defend Dodd-Frank to the hilt, bestowing on it the kind of deference normally reserved for the sacred text handed down from the heavens. Well, we should agree that Congress doesn't always get it right. When sweeping legislation is enacted, and remember, Dodd-Frank is a 2,300-page bill, there are often areas that later need clarification, and that's exactly what we're talking about here today. Whatever one's position is on Dodd-Frank, we should all be able to agree that the text is not sacred and does need some fixing. That's why I'm pleased that the Senate has sent us a bill to clarify that regulators should not impose regulatory capital requirements designed for banking institutions on insurance companies. That was not what was intended. The Senate Bill 2270, passed the other body unanimously. There is broad support in the House for a committee, but there is equally broad support for 3 other Dodd-Frank technical correction amendments that have previously passed this House. Mr. Barr's bill on the treatment of collateralized loan obligations under the Volcker Rule, Mr. Grimm's bill to exempt end users of derivatives from Dodd-Frank's overreaching margin requirements, and my own bill on how points and fees are treated under Dodd-Frank's onerous qualified mortgage rule. My legislation that is included in this package is a strong bipartisan provision that modifies and clarifies the way points and fees in a real estate transaction are calculated. This provision is narrowly focused to promote access to affordable mortgage credit without overturning the important consumer protections and sound underwriting requirements that Dodd-Frank's ability to repay provisions has in place. Ownership has been a pillar of American life for generations for home ownership, and this particular provision will help more Americans realize this portion of the American dream. This bill is a common-sense measure that should, and I believe does, have broad bipartisan support. I was puzzled, however, by a Dear Colleague letter produced by the Ranking Member Waters circulated earlier today. In the letter, she writes that Mr. Barr has coupled the insurance capital bill with other, quote, divisive legislation. Now, I'd ask my friend, the Ranking Member, what divisive legislation are you referring to? Is it the CLO bill, which passed the House on voice vote? Is it the end-user bill which passed the House and the ranking member's yes vote herself and only a dozen nay votes? Or is it my bill that also passed the House on voice vote? I don't see the divisiveness, and I don't see where the problem is. The reality is the Americans don't care about the parliamentary process so much as they want results. We are pleased that the Senate has finally come to the table on Dodd-Frank reforms. This is legislation that represents a step forward in working with the other body to make sure that my constituents and your constituents get mortgages to buy their first home, that farmers can assess the financing that they need to buy tractors and work their land, and that Americans can buy insurance policies without severe premium increases. I encourage my colleagues to support H.R. 5461, especially my Democratic friends, whom I believe support every component of the package. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves.